Welcome everyone to BrainStorm 2021. Today we'll be discussing evolving physical security. We have a guest speaker, Brandon Rogotzke from Parallel Technologies. He's a strategic alliance manager and has really a good insight into current trends within physical security. My name is Tamara Korbel. I'm the Executive Director of Enterprise Products and Solutions at PDS, and I'm also the CISO for the organization. So welcome to our session today. We are seeing a large change to the landscape of physical security. Organizations are looking for end-to-end solutions, really to get the best value from the solutions that they're providing. And it's really meant to also look at the entire operational challenges across a facility. Business and IT are aligned more than ever. And this is so important as, again, integrating into business functions, ensuring that IT is aligned and that decision-making processes are together. The necessity of security standards is really shifting to encryption, ensuring that overall security standards are looked at, and mobile solutions are embedded into technologies. So with those three areas, there's a great shift to the types of products and services in the industry around physical security. So today, Brandon will be talking about the latest trends around access management, ClearID, visitor management, and a product called AutoView that really talks about how license plates are being tracked within organizations from a security perspective. So Brandon, I'm going to hand it off to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Tamara, and welcome everybody. My name is Brandon Rogotzke. I work with Parallel Technologies. Parallel Technologies has been in the physical security space for some time. And today we just wanted to talk about some particular things that are changing in physical security, video surveillance that apply to the K-12 footprint. Access control has been around for the better part of 2 decades. Offering people electronic credentials to be able to access buildings. There has been a significant push to increase the sophistication of the reporting around what that means. So there's a big challenge when you start talking about, it may be a receptionist, it may be folks in the organization, that they have a lot to do to manage these visitors and these employees, issue badges, monitor all the alarms, and run the reports. It becomes very cumbersome to do this, not just for a single location, but for a campus. So a district obviously can have numerous buildings, 15, 20 buildings. So finding the right balance between offering access and the freedom to move around the facility, but lowering the risk is very important. So we want to make sure that we kind of streamline and pull those together. One of the things we wanted to do would be talk about ClearID and how that will help that.
So Brandon, what is the difference between a traditional access control and ClearID?
Good question, Tamara. So access control exists with ClearID. So access control is electronic access control. It's badge access, making sure that you have electronic credentials to be able to access specific doors, locations, and important valuable areas within a facility. ClearID is actually another layer that goes on top of access control. So what it is it's actually a unified identity and access management software. So what that means is instead of just giving somebody access to an entire facility, it's setting up their access based on privileges, based on their role in the organization, temporary, permanent, faculty staffed, they may be an SRO, and then giving them either permanent access or temporary access based on those credentials and those identities.
Thank you. So does ClearID, is it an on-prem or a cloud solution?
So ClearID is a cloud solution. It's actually done in the cloud through Microsoft Azure, and it is accessed by a web browser. So the nice thing is when you're trying to streamline getting either new employees or visitors access, you set up these provisions within the system. It can be, you can set up somebody ahead of time to know that they're going to be at the facility. And once they arrive at the facility, they can either be given a QR code to sign in through visitor management, or they can approach the front desk and then a text will be sent out to the individual that should be ushering them, escorting them, or just approving their privileges.
So what is the experience for an end user, such as what does the kiosk look like? How does the printout badge look like? Could you maybe step through that?
Sure. So there's a module within ClearID that can do visitor management. I think a lot of districts are still doing either a varying level of paper credentials. So people sign in, they give their ID to the front desk. There may be an electronic spreadsheet or something that the resource officer or the receptionist is doing. So driving this to an electronic visitor management is important, and that's what this offers. So this can be done through the desktop computer for the guy or gal that's at the front desk, or it can actually be done as a kiosk. So the kiosk would be, you walk in and either you were sent credentials ahead of time and you have a QR code. You can scan your QR code underneath the camera. It'll validate who you are, pop that up on the screen and say, Brandon Rogotzke, Parallel Technologies. Yes, this is me. And then it can issue me a paper badge with my picture. Or if you want more of a access control, you can walk to the front desk and they can actually issue me a badge that gives me access to the facility.
Thank you for explaining that. The scalability is really important for organizations just due to there might be one location or multiples. Could you talk through what ClearID from a licensing and having multiple buildings within the infrastructure of ClearID, how does that work together?
Yeah, good question. So ClearID was built to be flexible. So ClearID can be as simple as one single location, and maybe that's the only location you want to activate this for. Or with a district, you may want to do this district-wide. There's obviously elementary schools, middle schools, district offices, high schools. There may be mechanical buildings. There may be other things like that you actually want to create a separate location for, so you can issue credentials for people to have access. So a location would be set up, the licensing is set up as a subscription based. So it'd be set up as a location and then the number of identities within that location. And the identities could be a person, it could be somebody that's an Active Directory, they could have their position title, seniority in there. And then that license package would be set up for that site. And then you can roll that out from location to location and kind of rinse and repeat based on those criteria.
Very good. So shifting on to another product that is really being seen as a necessity in many areas is really the AutoView. And could you maybe step through what you're seeing from a trending perspective on how this is changing the landscape of schools across the nation?
Sure. So for a high level, for people to understand what AutoView is, AutoView is a comprehensive database that integrates with video surveillance. What that does is it pulls in data, and it may be for a city, it may be parking enrollment and permits, but a portion of that is actually license plate recognition, which applies directly to the K through 12 districts, and that's what's actually being used out of the AutoView application the most. So license plate recognition would be set up, and you can set this up for a few different things. One, you may have a gate, or you may have particular areas with the facility that are behind a fence that has card access. You can have a license plate recognition camera set up, so when it recognizes an approved vehicle, it'll open that up. So it'll open the gate, give somebody access. It could be faculty, staff, vendors. The other thing is that, so if you haven't, you may have somebody that's been driving on the facility in the evening or on the weekends, and there hasn't been anything that's gone wrong, but you notice that this vehicle keeps showing up. So you want to register that vehicle license plate and maybe do a little bit of investigation and see how that works. The other thing that is actually readily used within school district is something called threat levels. Threat levels is, if everybody remembers, kind of the if this then that scenario. So what that means is taking the manual part of reacting to particular things in your environment away and automating those. So let's say there is a school resource officer that obviously works very closely with the local PD, and that there's a license plate that they're looking for that obviously this person has felonious activity, maybe a threat to faculty, staff, things like that. If this license plate is registered by coming on the property, it can automatically change things in your system. It can send out SRS texts, emails, make phone calls to people, letting you know that this vehicle was registered on the property. It can also automatically lock doors. It can bring your video surveillance cameras up to full resolution to make sure that you're capturing all the data. And this is an automatic thing that can be built into the system.
Very interesting. So how are you seeing this impact the security of an organization? What are customers seeing as far as the benefits of reducing risk?
Yeah, so I think people are curious because I think with, fortunately for the Midwest, we haven't seen as many issues at the district level as far as threats as they have seen on the coast or down south. But it's creating a really heightened sensitivity around prevention. They just want to make sure that they're preventing those type of activities in any way that they can. So when you're adding things like license plate recognition, camera analytics, and things like that to your system, you can automate processes and hopefully avoid proactively some issues. So license plate recognition is something that once you build it in, that database continues to grow. So license plates, you can manually enter in license plates, and you can actually import license plates from other organizations like police. So once that database grows, the data becomes more important and more usable. So over the course of the first month, there's less information. Over the course of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, now that becomes a sophisticated database that can give you meaningful information over a longer period of time. It's allowing the district faculty, staff to be able to react and proact to things on the facility.
Thank you. Winter is here in the Midwest, and so when it comes to snow, how does snow impact the covering of license plates? Does the technology still work, and how does that impact the solution?
Thanks. That's an interesting question, and it's pretty common because with weather and honestly with people that don't want to be identified, they may want to kind of manually modify their license plate just a little bit so it's not suspicious. So when you enter a license plate in the system, it's going to set it up based on the state that it's issued, the type of plate that's issued within the state, and obviously the sequence of numbers and letters that are on there. So if for some reason a number or a letter is covered by snow, which is common, of course, but it identifies all the other characteristics on that license plate, it's the right type of license plate within that state, because you have obviously DNR plates, you have collector plates, you have other things like that, and then it has some of or most of those letters and numbers, it'll still register that plate. So it's an interesting analytic and algorithm that they build that based on. The other thing is that the licenses can be registered up to 220 miles an hour on these cameras. So it is a very stable, very proven technology.
So again, is this an on-prem or a cloud technology?
So the good thing with the Sharp as a service or AutoView, it can be done as either. So you can purchase the cameras, you can purchase the licensing and host this on a server at your location, which a lot of people do, or they'll do this as a service. So they'll spread these payments out essentially almost kind of like a lease. So it makes it very flexible. So if finances are a concern, or maybe it's something you're trying to kind of do a single proof of concept and you just don't want to pay a larger amount of money up front, they could set this up on a longer duration of time and reduce those incremental payments.
Okay. Thank you. So just holistically, how would you summarize the benefit of AutoView for a school district?
I think what I would summarize it as is it's another very powerful tool to add into the technology that you've already invested in, to make sure that this is kind of working in concert and symphony with what you've already installed. Genetec is a unified technology, which means kind of like Microsoft, everything comes included in that package. And when you want to add license plate recognition or things like that, you use a license to activate that. The reason that that's important is everything in that kernel of data is designed in concert with itself. There's one version of firmware, so you don't have all these things breaking. But as your environment grows, you can open up a new application. You can open up ClearID. You can open up AutoView. You can open up threat levels, dynamic mapping, and this becomes a way to grow your service and make it truly your own.
Thank you. Let's shift to a quick video on ClearID.
ClearID helps people to gain access to a facility. It also allows you to manipulate staff access privileges. It also deals away with antiquated visitor management like paper sign-in or having to work through an email request system to allow somebody to come into the facility. So when you have an employee, let's say, who's hired in to the company, 2 years later they change from just a standard run-of-the-mill employee and now they're upper management and they make decisions based off of who has access to a given area. Well, now those individuals can be associated with groups or different policies so that they immediately gain access to an area that they should have gotten access to as a manager. Or they might be able to allow for the approving of specific area access or approvals into a space. We think about we need to control access. Right now all of those systems are cumbersome. They're all paper-based, driven by email. They're all driven by, hey, who has control of the lab? Who has control of the front door, the IT room, the server room? How should we gain access to those areas? Well, we need to figure out who the approver is. We have to work through security. We have to update the badge. Where does all that happen? So this application centralizes this and makes it all consistent across the board. You think of school districts, you think of corporate 500 type clients who they have all sorts of changes in their personnel who comes into the facility, also visitors. So registering and tracking all that can be really messy. And especially when you're leveraging paper or maybe some antiquated electronic system that doesn't fully encompass your access control. It might be one part visitor management, it might be one part access control, it might be one part paper, one part email. This system combines all of those things into one centralized user interface. So effectively you can simplify it, streamline it, bring down your costs, bring down your risk, and force compliance. Let's say that you're a manager of a space and you want to throw an event. You want to invite a couple of visitors by to show them a demonstration of some product you have. Normally the process would be, I need to fill out an email, give all of those people's names. Now imagine we live in the COVID world now, or we live in the space where we need to have somebody fill out an NDA. Did you send one to each one of those employees? Did they work through the temperature screening? Did they work through signing the affidavit? All of that is, again, a manual process. Now what I need to do is submit the request, import the names, their emails get sent to them directly with all the appropriate forms that they need to complete. All of those get completed, sent back to security. Security does the approval, or the manager who has responsibility for that space. And now all of those people can be sent an invite to the event. They can walk up to a kiosk and be able to have a badge printed without ever interacting with an individual if they need to gain access to the facility, or you can have them check in with guard staff. And then they're able to access their event. But all of this is done instantaneously via email communication, SMS text notification, and all of the approvers can get that detail in an expedited way. So I think one of the nice things about the kiosk is that it allows for a simple QR code check-in. And now they can take that QR code up to the kiosk, check themselves into the system, and then immediately print themselves out a visitor badge. That also starts a log through the system to allow the person who gave you the visitor access to be notified that you're there via email and SMS text, which is wonderful. So if you already have Genetec, you're part of the way there. we need to provide you with some licensing so that you can start to activate not only your site, but the identities that you're going to be utilizing through this application. It's as easy as call up your sales representative and say, I'm interested in looking at this technology a little deeper, and we can easily give you a quote for the number of sites that you have located and the number of identities you're looking to manage. A lot of manufacturers around the world, but this is why Genetec is getting so much market share, is because they have all sorts of subject matter experts and software engineers who are building solutions to help solve problems.
All right, welcome back. Needing assistance regarding any of the things that we discussed today, Parallel Technologies is a direct partner with PDS. We partner with Parallel on many different aspects of physical security, but just an overview of what we have for services here at PDS. We have our modern business data services, which includes data center, compute storage, both hybrid and on-prem services, virtualization. We do complete business assessments across to take a look at your storage and compute needs. And we have a managed service that wraps around all of the data center needs for an organization. From a security services perspective, what we talked about today were some of the access management and surveillance areas that are impacting organizations such as K through 12. And hopefully you found value in the education that was provided. Identity management governance is also a specialty of PDS and Parallel Technologies, but there are other areas within our security stack. If you're interested in these services, again, we have a managed service as well as other areas of specialty. Network and infrastructure, the traditional wireless, SD-WAN, closet data center, and again, network assessments. We really take pride in the fact that we build security into everything that we do. And so as you partner with PDS, we really take a look at a holistic approach around an organization's security, and we ensure that we understand the business needs as well. So part of what we wanted to do today is talk about how these things are impacting potentially your business and the new trending technologies that are out in the marketplace. Brandon, you want to talk about Parallel Technologies and what you do every day?
Sure. Thank you, Tamara. So Parallel Technologies is a intelligent building company, and what that means is we're trying to enable technology to help you manage your facilities better, from an audit perspective, from an investment perspective, security. So a lot of these things are video surveillance and card access, like we spoke today. There's a lot of advanced analytics that are getting into the data and video surveillance, biometrics, so you can use your iris, your thumbprint, things like that to access intercom, visitor management, emergency notifications, so overhead paging, driving messages to screens, intrusion, which is burglar alarm, and then distributed antenna. Distributed antenna is bringing that cellular signal inside buildings, making sure that that works for first responders, for faculty, staff, and visitors.
Thank you, Brandon. So thank you for partnering with us today to spend some time hearing what we thought was really an important topic for the BrainStorm event. We hope you have a wonderful BrainStorm experience, and thank you so much for attending today.